We're here with Sonny Tannan at the Put Away in Maryland. And Sonny is a longtime pickleball competitor and global coach of pickleball. So we're excited to be here and meet you. And we've heard so many amazing things about you. So it's great to meet you in person and hear about your story and your coaching journey and what you're doing for this great sport.
I appreciate it. Well, Sarah, John, thanks for making the drive out here, and welcome to the Put Away. We hope you enjoy our club. Thanks for having me.
Gorgeous facility.
Thank you.
Absolutely amazing. So excited to get out on the course and get to play a little.
Yeah, look, once we're done with all of this, we'll get some food in us, and we'll get out on the courts and hit some pickle.
Excellent.
Excited.
So as a global coach, which we've just determined now, how many certifications do you currently have now?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. So first of all, I have to say that there is no one right certification or organization that's out there. For anybody that's interested, get out there, find what's right for you, right? But for me, I am currently a PPR certified professional, and up until last year, I was one of the coach developers. So I got to travel around the country and certify other coaches in pickleball. Just recently, as of 2025, I joined an organization called RPO, Racket Professional Organization, which is a certification that was written by Colin Johns, who, if you don't know Colin Johns, you should probably get out on the pickleball court and start to play a little bit.
Sure.
So I'm actually a level 2 certifier for RPO, which is the next level of Colin's certification. But most recently, the one that I'm really excited to talk about is also DUPR Coach. It's an online coaching app that if you haven't been able to take a look at it, please get out there, check it out. It gives coaches just another way to both reach out and connect with your players. It gives you a different revenue stream. And currently for DUPR Coach, I'm their master DUPR coach.
That's awesome. Many hats underneath the umbrella of pickleball for coaching.
Absolutely, but it's just like the sport. I get to work with really amazing people, right? Some of them have a foundation in other racket sports or other coaching. So, I'm just a lifelong learner. So I want to just keep learning, and the game changes also. So what we might have been teaching last year, last month, might be something that's completely different now.
It becomes obsolete. So is the DUPR coaching, is it instructional, like PPR certification teaches coaches how to instruct, or is it about rating the students with the DUPR rating? Like, what is the DUPR coaching program?
That's such a good question. So the way that we've actually shifted the business model for DUPR coaches, it's actually an assessment model. Because imagine, if you will, as players, competing or coaching or in facilities such as these, do you know how many players come in and they have no idea what level they should be at?
Right.
Some of them don't even understand what the numbers mean.
Right.
So the DUPR Coach Assessment Tool allows coaches basically a really easy algorithm. So like technology that backends it, where you're going to observe players, you're going to be taught on what to look for, and then you're going to slide the scales, and it's going to generate a provisional DUPR rating for them. So for DUPR Coach, it's about the assessment piece. I think for like the traditional ones like PPR, IPTPA, RSPA, RPO, that's really where you're given this great playbook of working with players and then working with coaches to make sure the coaches understand what exactly to look for in a player. And it's all a journey, right? It's how do you get that 3.0 to a 3.5, 3.5 to a 4.0, senior pro player. So I think we're just trying to build out a really good roadmap to help them in that journey.
Okay, so it sounds like it's beneficial for a coach, even if they're already PPR certified, to then get their DUPR coach certification.
I love that question. Absolutely, because just think about this. Just because you learn one thing, does that necessarily mean you know everything, right? So like, John as a coach is probably getting YouTube videos or getting things from his certification or watching players and others coach, just like myself, is where can I gain that information to learn? And I think if I'm a coach out there or even a player, I'm looking at multiple places to learn from.
I just throw her in a weighted vest and take her up hills. I tell her to hit the ball hard, and then I throw a weighted vest on her and just tell her to climb hills.
I haven't tried that one yet, John.
That's my go-to with at least her. Not every student, but at least with her.
So now look, Coach Ken answers it. How's that training regime working out for you? You look very fit. So.
Oh, it's amazing. John just started training me in July.
Okay.
And I started with a 6-pound weighted vest for off-court training, and now I'm at 30 pounds, literally running up and down hills. My shoulders are still sore, by the way, from the run the other day.
It was a good run. My calves are still sore.
Does he do it with you? Does he run with you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good coach to me. right?
You're not a coach if you're not doing it with your players.
I agree.
Yeah, you can't
sit there with a big beer gut and be like,
Yeah.
run faster.
I heard.
Right.
Go
yeah,
do
I heard
this,
if you go do this, then it'll help you.
You know, so it's interesting. I think that's probably like one of the best things about being a coach is trial and error, right? So something that you're now teaching your student, I think it's so powerful when you can say, by the way, I'm telling you that because I used to do that, or I was guilty of that, and now here's what I would encourage you to do. I've been there, I've done that. So I agree with you. Like, that's a great coach.
Well, and with her, it's been really fun because both of us also playing mixed doubles together. Like we've got this different dynamic than what it would probably be if it was just a normal student with a normal coach.
Sure.
But I try to take all the aspects from like the other sports that I've played in the past and take these little tidbits of information from each one, and then try to apply them to the sport, which has been really unique and very fun. And then it's been fun to see Sarah progress and watch it work because she was the guinea pig. Yeah. So I could have botched it. It was a coin flip.
That's the proof in the pudding.
Yeah.
Right. Is I think as a coach, having players, I have a coach that's here right now who I was her very first coach. She started playing. She never wanted to play in tournaments, and she played in the U.S. Open as her very first tournament. I think she medaled. I think it was either 3 or 3-5, but she medaled. Came back and she's like, I really love this sport. She's now a coach. She's now coaching here. So to me, like what you're saying is, I think that certain people are going to be wired like that, and I can show you it because I'm doing it right there side by side. You're partnering with them, so now it's a different dynamic. I think that's amazing that you can do that.
Well, and the nice thing too with coaching is there's so many different styles that it allows students to find which coach works for them, right? Because what I do and what she's doing with me is definitely not for everybody, but it works for what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And then just on court. As some personalities mesh, some personalities don't.
Yep.
So as for students, it's great that the sport's blowing up so much that there's so many coaches out there now that you can really go and try your hand with different people.
And that's so important because you asked the question earlier on about like coaching and a global coach. I'll be the first person to say, go out and get coached by different people, because somebody might say something to you in just a slightly different manner. It could be the exact same piece of information, but for whatever reason, Sarah, now it clicks for her, right? Or for you, it clicks.
That
or for me,
moment.
the aha moment, right? I mean, but to me, I think really good coaches, right? They know what they're doing, and they also are confident in the fact that that player might learn differently, right? And you're right. We've now got juniors in this game, right? We've got the 30, 40-year-olds that are in the game, 30, 40-year-olds. We've got women, we've got men, we've got former athletes, we've got people that have never played a sport. So as a coach, our job is just to find the best way to bring out the best in that person. Give them guidance and kind of point them in the right direction.
One aspect of John's coaching that has been really beneficial to me is I have a tennis background, and that's my only background in sports, but it's a very deep background, and so that's how I thought of a court and hitting different strokes. And John is very well versed in tennis and was able to coach me in pickleball for a tennis player's brain. So John's the one that was able to convert me from just pure tennis player to pure pickleball player, because he is speaking my language that I'm fluent in, which is tennis.
I love that you say that, speaking your language, right? Because you think about it, that's probably like, for tennis players especially, or any other sport, that's decades of habits and muscle memory that you've now got to like relearn or unlearn, and then have somebody that's guiding you in that process. So he's found your language. I mean, that's really cool.
Exactly. And then you said that the other day you were coaching a student who has a softball background, and so
we were equating it to softball.
Exactly.
Okay, this is like court positioning. From T-ball, it's easier to run up to a ball than run back to a ball. So you're gonna just like grounding a ball, you take it out in front of you. That's how we're gonna do a third shot drop or a fifth shot drop. And so you just got to find those, like you said, that language, and break that down.
And it's funny too, like to put a little humor to it. Like the players that have played like a baseball or a field hockey or like lacrosse, I'm like, why are you afraid of getting hit by a pickleball?
That too. No, that too. That's
it's going to hurt much less than what you're expecting.
Right? I told that student specifically because she was hesitant to get to the line. I was like, look, if you're fielding softball, it's like it's a plastic
you're good.
ball. Like,
you're going to get hit at least once in your career. Just go ahead and get it out of the way.
Yeah, for sure.
At least once a week.
Yeah. Probably multiple times a game, depending how you're playing. But no, that's why I love coaching so much, because you're able to talk these different languages with different people, and then watch their game progress. And I think I've started to fall in love more with coaching than the competitive side, which is something that I never thought would happen. But I think that's kind of where my head's at anymore.
That's awesome.
And it's been a really fun journey for me, and I'm Sarah took a chance with me. She was my first student.
Nice.
Literally, before I was even certified, asked me for some help, and then I got to go watch her compete at senior pro level singles, and then go try out at the combine in Houston, and that was a really cool moment for me.
That's amazing. Look, first coach, first player. I mean, you guys have a bond that you're clearly developing, and that'll be there long after pickleball.
Oh, yeah, I told her once she fires me and moves on, she can never get rid of the fact that I was the one that got her to where she was.
She's like, Sonny, what are you doing later?
Right, yeah. She's out here collecting business cards. And
she did ask me for my cell phone.
Right. Just, it'll be a discussion later.
Where are you next weekend, Sonny? I was like, come on, John's sitting right here.
But it's been really unique, and I would love to hear what got you into the coaching side of pickleball, your pickleball background, and also the other sports that you've played in the past. Because I think we're now getting to the point where I guess we're probably in the next 10 years you might see some pickleball coaches who have only played pickleball. Mm-hmm. But right now everybody who's coaching.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Most pickleball coaches, probably almost all of them, come from another sport. Right. But you're right. Juniors that are coming up with pickleball as their main sport might turn into coaches as adults.
Right.
And that could be their only sports background.
Yeah, because right now everybody has to have this, I call it the island of misfit toys, because everybody's got these weird backgrounds of I tried this sport, or I did this sport, or I made it to this high level in one sport. So would love to hear that from you.
Yeah, so how did I find the sport, right? So I was walking through my local YMCA, which was in Howard County, Columbia, Maryland. Just doing my normal workout. I was, out at the gym, and we heard that familiar sound that you hear right now going behind us, that pop, pop, pop. And I was like, what is that noise? And it was in a basketball gym. So I opened the door, stuck my head in, and there's a gentleman giving 4 ladies who are absolutely just having a blast. They are giggling. They're hitting that ball as hard as they can. And so he was giving them a lesson for what it looked like. They finished, and I waited till they finished. The ladies left, and I asked that gentleman, I said, what is this? And he goes, well, it's pickleball. I'm like, what's a pickleball? And he goes, here, grab this paddle and get on the court over there. And of course, this particular YMCA had wooden paddles. So my very first experience was with the original wooden paddle. So I pop up over on the other side, and he just starts hitting it back and forth. And after about 2 minutes, he stops and he goes, stop. He's like, you've played this sport before. And I said, no, sir, I have not. I said, but I'd love to learn more about it. And this gentleman's name was Dave. And Dave and I became friends very quickly. He found out I have a tennis background, so I played and I coached tennis for many years before I got hurt on a deployment in the military. And so I actually had to give up playing tennis because of an injury. Wouldn't you know it, I found pickleball just because of that same injury. World works in mysterious ways,
right?
Absolutely. And so Dave and I got to know each other really well. Turns out Dave and his wife, Donna, were going to be moving and retiring, I think, to Peru. And he goes, you know what? He's like, I'm leaving. He's like, we need somebody to come here and continue teaching here. He's like, I will tell all my students to take lessons from you if you go get certified. So right off the bat, I've been really lucky. The people I've met who've mentored me, who I've mentored, they come into life at the right time, the right moments, right? And he said, but you got to go get certified. And I got really lucky because a PPR workshop was coming in the area. It was, it's funny, you said Sarah has to drive an hour. You guys have to drive an hour to play. I had to drive 2.5 hours for this workshop.
Okay.
But I got really lucky because at that time, Sarah Ansbury happened to be the developer who, at the time and currently is now the executive director of PPR. So I got certified with her. Got to talking with her there. She actually connected me with her sponsor at the time, Head. I got sponsored by Head. I became a PPR instructor right then and there. Went back to that same YMCA and cut my chops there and started coaching pickleball. Got into a really welcome community. The people there were really sweet. They were really good. Of course, they handed me a wooden paddle every time I competed, which I didn't know at the time was the worst one out there. But they're like, yeah, that's the new guy. Let him use this, right? And we all have that familiar story of, I just thought I was going to beat everybody with my tennis background and my athleticism. I was probably the youngest by 2 decades, and I was getting my butt wiped by John and Donna and Jane and Sharon and everybody else out there. But I learned. I learned how to play that sport. I learned how to become a coach. And from there, I was hired to be a pickleball professional at an organization locally. I actually then turned that into an entire consulting business where I help build programs from scratch. And you kind of go full circle to where I am now. I now have consulting clients that are worldwide that I certify their coaches, or I help them to build programming. I go there to do specialty workshops and clinics, and a lot of that foundation came from when I got the chance to teach with Colin Johns. So, the Johns brothers used to live in Maryland. They're from Maryland originally, but before they moved to Texas, got to know Colin really well. So I'd say probably 85, maybe even 90% of my philosophies and foundation are from being on the court teaching with him, watching him teach. And so I've really taken that, and I try to go out and pass that same information on to other local instructors, but it's definitely the way that it shapes my thinking process now when it comes to coaching, and that's how I got into coaching.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So when you travel for your consulting business, are there certain themes that you see among places that need you? Is there
something like unique? Is there a magic sauce, a magic bullet that we're looking for?
Wow. Is everyone making the same mistake?
So, I have a couple of both fellow coaches and business partners that would say, yes, they are. And I'd be like, well, I mean, they're not all the same mistakes. But, I think some of the common things, especially since we have so many facilities opening up now. And look, there are a variety of pickleball playing areas. There's YMCAs, there's Parks and Rec, right? There are private organizations, there are private clubs, there
dedicated
are country clubs, there are blended. So I don't think there's any one size fits all solution for them, but I think it all comes down to just like in real life, when you have great leadership or executive decision making, and you go down to the operators and you have good people that are being enabled to do great things together, I think that's where you usually win. When the decision making isn't just one or two people saying, do this, without good information behind it. And, perfect example would be, courts that get built wrong, right? Something as simple as facing in the wrong direction, right? Where the sun maybe gives a distinct advantage to one set of team and maybe not another one. I think other ones and it sounds so rookie, but have the right specs of the courts that you built, right? Like how many times do we have courts that are not the right size, or the net is the wrong height, or even from a safety perspective, you want to put in as many courts as you can, but now player safety is now in jeopardy, right?
So you can't run to the side.
Yeah, well, running or something as simple as, when you look back here, we have cushions, we have padded cushions on the walls. I can't tell you how many times we tested it out, we fell through the wall, and that's drywall, and there you go, there's a big hole now, right? Let alone a hurt body, right? So
God forbid you hit a stud.
So you think about, and the players that are playing it, you said this perfectly earlier, is some of them have played other sports, but many have not. And pickleball is so easy to pick up right now that sometimes people don't know their limitations. And I probably have seen more injuries where somebody just really wanted to get to that ball, falls down, breaks something, cuts something, and now you're out of commission for a little bit, right? So I think some of the common things really relate around safety, right? To just say, let's make sure we do it right, and if it costs us a little bit more, let's spend that money up front instead of having to worry about spending money later on doing it.
Right.
But the most important part is not only just the courts, the personnel, right? So executive and operational, but those coaches, I think having them certified, which most organizations do a really good job now, is I have a tennis background, paddle, whatever it might be. We need to make sure they know how to play pickleball and be certified to play pickleball, rather than just saying, well, I know how to teach it, and let's just go at it. That might work for just in a social setting, but if you're really truly wanting to learn the sport, I think being able to have that good foundation in coaching is just as important for every organization, not just the facilities themselves.
I have a loaded question for you.
Love it. Let's go.
You're going to hate this one.
Hot topic.
Yeah. So I complain to her a lot that, in general, but that when I'm seeing and listening to people teach and coach pickleball, I see a lot of people harp on injuries, which I completely understand. I full-heartedly understand where that's coming from. But what I see a lot happening is it's these kind of very one-off or outliers of these injuries. And then what I see students, they become more and more and more hesitant. Right. So obviously with the paddles getting hotter, eye protection, a lot of people are wearing a lot more eye protection. But you'll hear people be like, well, this one individual in California at this one club, and all of a sudden it's this giant even just for one state, it's this giant population, and it happened to one individual. It's a horrible thing, shouldn't, it's sad that it happened, but coming from snowboarding, when you go out to snowboard, it's an inherent risk. You're okay, you're throwing yourself down a mountain attached to a board. People are like, oh yeah, I broke my leg and I broke my wrist, and you know what you're getting into. So how do you mitigate that where you're you're showcasing to students that it's a fun sport and you can be highly competitive, but at the same time, it's a risk to reward.
Yeah.
But how do you mitigate that?
I love that. So I think that, injuries as a whole, right? I think you have to address like the big white elephant in the room. And I always tell this to players when we're doing clinics. I always demonstrate this. So we might be across the net, just hitting the ball back and forth. And I say, how many of you do this? Hit the ball. So how's it going? All right, time to start 0-0-2 within 10 seconds, right? So I think the inherent risk of injury is injury prevention, right? So I think it's educating them on what can happen and how to your point, mitigate those risks. Where, yes, the technology is continuing to shift and evolve and change. And, you say hot paddles, there are certainly, plenty of conversations and dialogues around what should be tested, what shouldn't be tested. And, the big organizations out there are still trying to figure it out. And, they're trying to do the right thing of involving third parties and the right people to do that. But from a player standpoint, I think it's just educating them on certain things. Something as basic as you should have the right shoes on when you're playing, right? You see players come out in running shoes. I've seen people come out in flip-flops, and it's, it's something as simple as a coach, like you mentioned, is, look, you should have appropriate equipment. Snowboarding, are you going to go out there on snowshoes? No, you're going to go on a snowboard, right? So it's basics of equipment. I think to your point of eye protection, I think because we have technology that's maybe gotten a little bit further along than our player, like their quality of instruction and play and whatnot. So is it, eye protection to protect us from that? I think it's, and at the amateur level, you're clearly going to see a lot more of this than probably at the pro level.
Right.
Pro level injuries are maybe like more wear and tear, not rest and recovery.
Overuse.
Right. Overuse. Yeah, absolutely. So for me personally as a coach, I think it's understanding that audience that I have there in front of me and then tailoring that injury prevention conversation. And look, from a personal standpoint, sorry if I hit my mic there. From a personal standpoint, I wear eye protection now, but that's also because, and this is another funny story, I was watching a PPA match, saw a good friend of mine catch a ricochet off of his partner's paddle into the eye, was out for just a minute, thankfully no major injuries. And to me, I said, if that can happen at that level, which, that's the elite level, right? It's the 0.0000001 percenters, right? The 99% of us are all the amateurs, right? I said, if it can happen at that level, it can happen at any other level. And wouldn't you know, at the very next day, I actually got hit in the face by an overhead, but I was wearing protective glasses. It broke the glasses. And I said, if I hadn't seen that video in that minute, now maybe I caused it to happen, Murphy's Law, right? But I mean, but from that day forward, I now wear eye protection indoors, outdoors, no matter what. So, if you can learn anything from, if you've realized there's something you need to do to protect yourself or something to mitigate those injuries, as a coach, we should be guiding our students in that path. And I use that first example of that little hitting back and forth and within 10 seconds. Look, I tell them at the very least, 5 to 10 minutes, like warm up properly. Like that's not only from getting the blood flowing, but like it's to minimize those injuries that you might further along get. So that's
right. Loosen the ligaments and
yeah,
be more flexible.
Look, and I think dynamic stretching is really important also. Like, you talk about weighted vests and you talk about conditioning. Sometimes it's not even the best player that wins at the end of the day. It's like the law of attrition. It's the one that lasts the longest, right? So I would tie that injury prevention into conditioning also. Now, if you're just a purely rec player and you're coming out and you're going to play socially for like an hour with your same group, like that's a different conversation, right? I think we're talking about players that maybe play more, they're recreational, maybe they're competing in leagues or round robins or tournaments, or they want to go pro. Like, I do think it's a really important part of your training.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's the best answer to a loaded question I've ever heard. So thank you for that. But exactly what you were saying. Like, I definitely think it depends on the individual and their goals. Yeah. And her and I have discussed, there's some people who this is their exercise. They come out for an hour or two, and that's great. That's awesome. It gets them off the couch and it gets them out moving. Yep. And maybe that's the catalyst to move them into looking at conditioning and into trying to, just live an overall healthier lifestyle.
Yeah.
But, then for individuals like Sarah who have a very high standard that they're trying to achieve, then okay, now let's look at all these aspects and realize that we have to take a lot more into account than just,
knowing how to play pickleball.
Right.
Yeah,
nutrition,
absolutely.
The off-court training, the flexibility, not just drilling on court.
Yeah. Well, you look at the elite athletes right now, and same thing, we talked about this maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. You didn't see that. You see a lot of information coming out from a lot of these elite athletes saying, here's what I'm doing to train. Here's what I'm doing to eat right? Here's what I'm doing from recovery period, right? So I think there's a lot that can go into like that package of what's happening and how is the sport changing. So, yeah, great question. I love that loaded question.
Oh yeah, thank you. That was great. Yeah, it's one that and again, not to harp on it, but I see where people come from. But life's too short to live in a complete bubble wrap all the time. And if you're getting out there to have some fun, like it's, that 0.0001% chance of something happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's interesting because you had said, well, how do you keep people knowing that it's still fun and that they should still get out there? I could maybe think on one hand of how many people have played this sport and be like, I'm not going to play it again, and they never play it again. Mm-hmm. Maybe not even on that. Maybe on like one or two fingers, right? The really uniqueness of this sport, anybody can play it, any age can play it. I've seen generations play it on the courts together, where you've got 4 generations, and great granddad is talking with great grandkid, and they're shaking it up. They're talking back and forth, and they're still being competitive, right? So it's possible, but I really find it hard to believe that somebody's not going to play this sport just because they're afraid that they're going to get hurt. But to your point, they just have to know, like, what is it that they need to be aware of? And that, as a coach, I think that's really important. That is part of like your playbook. You've got to make sure your player can stay on the court and can keep playing. And if they're off the court, stay off the court. And I'm a perfect example of, for the last 2.5 years, I've been in ongoing, off-going PT just to get certain parts of my body strengthened because I had suffered an injury, right? And it was, my wife will say this, she's like, if you had just listened to me. Now, mind you, she's a physician, so she has a lot of knowledge of probably knowing what she was talking about. Mm-hmm. She knew what she was talking about. And she said, if you just listened to me, then instead of spending a year recovering, it might have taken you 3 to 6 months. So when I talk to players now, I say, I'm that guy. I'm the guy that's, if I had just listened to not only my body, to my wife, to better instruction, I see. Looks like I'm hitting a soft spot right now. That's her talking
to me. Yeah. That's her talking to me. That's like all of a sudden the student became the coach and was like, you need to start listening to your body. You can't just keep
100%. Like, so if I listened to, but then in hindsight, being off the court, and I talk with a lot of friends of mine who are injured, being injured and off the courts actually allowed us to appreciate the sport and find other avenues to get better at it. So for me, it was being able to observe, or it was being able to see other things that if I had just got out on the court and just kept doing whatever I was doing, I might have missed an opportunity to learn something else. So being injured actually allowed me to learn some other things, not only about myself, but about the game, just by being able to be outside of it and observe it. So that's how I would approach it. Yeah.
So what do you see as the next chapter for the sport, and how does your role professionally fit in with that?
I love this question too. Gosh, you guys have great questions.
Thank you.
So I'll say, where do I see the evolution of the sport? Well, number one, we very recently, probably like in the last 6 months to a year, there's a lot more youth programs, right? So there's a junior tour. So, kids are now getting a chance, juniors, not kids. Juniors are now allowed to compete with juniors of their own age, or within like that level set of their experience in the sport, as well as, just physically being able to compete. That's part one. Part two, go even further than that, school systems, right? So here in Maryland, Montgomery County Public School Systems, I believe, launched the first pickleball PE. Like, they have pushed it out to every single one of their public school systems. And a local paddle company happens to be based here in Rockville, Maryland, Yola, is backing all of that, right? They are, providing instruction,
That's
equipment.
Fantastic. Yeah,
so, and I am a Yola sponsored coach. So, I mean, I have a soft spot for Yola, but they're doing it the right way in their own backyard, pushing it at the junior level to say, let's get kids off the couches, or let's get maybe that kid that isn't quite athletic enough for football or baseball or soccer. Let's give them something that's a really easy sport to pick up.
And the social aspect for the kids.
It's inclusive.
Make them feel included.
It's inclusive, right? So you can go there, and it's okay if you're not good, but you sure can learn how to hit a ball over the net, or how to run around. Like, you can learn it. So I think the youth, the junior programs from a competition standpoint, the youth programs in schools, let's get them into the PE systems. We already know in America, we're in some challenges with, obesity and health issues and whatnot. So let's get them out there and active. And then go a little bit fast forward to the next level of our generation is college. So we now have, I think DUPR, I want to say it was maybe 3 years ago, they had their first collegiate DUPR, where you have universities competing against each other, but it's really, really firmed up now, where you've got colleges competing for money. You've got colleges now creating their own pickleball clubs. You've got colleges and universities now putting pickleball courts on campus. Like, it's now supporting those kids at the next level, where maybe now, instead of waiting till we're a couple of decades too long in the tooth, like, what if they want to learn to be pros, like, earlier on? Like, let them get out there and learn. And each of those have, sponsors, or they have, professors or people on campus that probably have a love for pickleball, guiding them and pushing them in the right directions. They've got coaches that might come out of that. So, you asked the question about, well, what does that mean for a pickleball playing coach? There are going to be some juniors. I think on our team, we have a couple of 9, 12, 14-year-olds, I think, where they're getting access to some of the best coaches in the world. What if they want to be a coach one day? Well, here you go. Here's someone who's only maybe just played pickleball. They've got a great wealth of knowledge of just pickleball. Or maybe they played another sport and they want to cross over and get really good at this sport. So we're going from the youth, the juniors, to the collegiate level, to, excuse me, I'm sure we see it all out on social media. When's it coming to the Olympics? Right? So at the very next level of it, there's a lot that needs to happen for that, but that's probably a whole nother episode that you got to record there. So, where is pickleball evolving? I think we're trending in the right directions. And then, how do we also support the other spectrum? So our seniors, our senior pros, you're seeing a lot of specialty like leagues and combines that are just for certain age of players, where you're building this community, right? This really special community of people who have had a wealth of life experience, but now they still want to compete, maybe not at a super elite level, but at an elite level with peers of their own age and their own, athleticism. So great, let's create something for them. So what comes next? Teams, Major League Pickleball. So MLP's really got a team format that, how do we get 2 guys, 2 gals on a team together and let them compete against others? So like the team formats. And I think for me, the role is just being in tune, having the pulse of what's going on, but how do we continue to create, for me, solutions with the right people, right? With the right partners that have the ability to scale. So for me, it's not so much about, I'm back at the YMCA teaching on the courts, for 4 hours a day. For me, I want to be able to be parts of teams and organizations and industries that create something that hasn't been done before. So DUPR Coach, that was one of the projects that didn't exist. Right, so that's something that's really cool. We have a couple other projects that are going to be coming down the pipeline, where how do we get companies involved, like corporations, right? They've got people, they've got team building, they've got culture. Well, how do we use pickleball to be the new foursome? I mean, not everybody plays golf, but a lot of people can pick up pickleball really quickly. Right. So how do we get other pieces that are not pickleball centric involved in this beautiful sport called pickleball? To me, that's where I want to be. I want to be involved in those things with the right people, and sharing knowledge and learning from them, and then creating really cool concepts like that. So that's where I'd like to be. So.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's exciting to see what the sport's becoming, especially where it came from for the individuals who have been in it for a while, and hopefully we get to that Olympic level, get to watch it, get to the Olympics, and just continue to take off. And as long as people like us keep fostering that community and keep pushing it forward, then then we all do our part. And
I think it's great. I mean, look, you guys are creating conversations, right? You've got people that are playing, you got people that you're connecting with in different social circles. You've got facilities like these, and who knows what's next. So you're probably going to come over some other kind of channel where you're like, oh, we should talk to that person, or talk about this, or talk about that. And then eventually there's going to be some topics to talk about. And I think just having those conversations, I mean, that's amazing. Like the dynamics that you guys bring to that table is really good. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for letting us come down here, for letting us interview you. Again, beautiful facility here. It's amazing to hear everything that you're doing within the community itself and what you've been able to accomplish so far. And I know both of us are very excited to watch what else you have coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Well, hopefully you guys will be involved in some of those. How about that?
No, absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely take you up on that.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.